I hope your day is going well, and today I wanted to start with a question. What makes you mad? If pressed, most of us would probably answer that question with a whole list of things. Some of you may even list the names of people who do nothing, apparently, but make you mad. Now, regardless of how long the list is of things that make you angry, the truth is every one of us has things on that list because every one of us, simply because we are people, are innately wired to experience anger. Many times we think of anger as being a negative thing, and certainly it can produce all sorts of negative results, but ultimately anger is part of our emotional makeup. Last week I started a new devotional series I'm calling Emotions, Keeping My Feelings in Check. God has wired us with a varied number of emotions, but each of them can produce and create problems for us if we don't keep them under control. Now that's especially true with respect to anger. So, how do I, as a person, but more specifically as a person who's a follower of Jesus, how do I keep the emotion of anger in check in my life? I want to direct you to just one verse of Scripture, and we find it in Psalm 4:4. Now, the first half of this statement is repeated in the New Testament in James, but we actually see it first here thousands of years before as God is speaking through the pen of the psalmist. Be angry and do not sin. On your bed, reflect in your heart and be still. Based on this, let me just share with you a couple of principles that if you get them straight in your mind and begin to act on them, it'll help you and me, all of us, not to remove anger from the experience of life, but to enable us to experience this emotion in ways that aren't destructive and harmful. So here's the first thought. My feelings do not excuse my behavior. Now, the psalmist says to be angry and do not sin. Now, the emphasis is not on the statement to be angry. God is not saying you need to operate as an angry person. Rather, as you experience anger, because you will, do not let that lead you to commit sinful behavior. Let me reiterate this thought, that anger is not intrinsically bad. God has wired us to experience it. We are told repeatedly things that make God mad. And certainly it is clear that Jesus was angered when He saw money changers taking advantage of worshipers in the temple. Anger is not the problem. The problem is when the anger is not kept in bounds and then prompts behavior that's wrong. Too many times, however, we operate with a principle communicated by statements that are so frequently used that they're effectively cliche. For example, you've heard someone say things like this: "You'll just have to excuse him. He's got a short temper." I've heard people say before, "You just got to understand, I've got that quick Irish temper." Well, what are those statements communicating? They are attempting to rationalize or even excuse bad behavior because ultimately someone is experiencing anger that's not kept under control. So understand this, bad behavior is bad behavior regardless of what motivates it. Just because you're angry, that does not give you the freedom to use hurtful language, unchristlike words against someone else. Just because you are angry, you're not granted the freedom to destroy someone else's property. Just because you're angry, you're not granted the freedom to physically strike someone else. All of those behavior, and that's not an exhaustive list, but all of them are wrong, out of bounds behaviors. Just because you did them or committed those acts because you were angry, doesn't mean they're okay. If you're playing basketball and you have the ball and you look up to see the scoreboard, but your foot crosses the line, the referee's going to blow the whistle and the other team is going to get the ball. Why? Because you went out of bounds. It doesn't make any difference why you did, you're still out of bounds. Part of controlling anger is to understand that it does not afford you any free passes. It never excuses behavior. But here's another thing to keep in mind if you want to keep anger in check. Press the pause button. Notice how verse 4 continues. On your bed, reflect in your heart and be still. Get a mental picture of that. It is communicating the thought of removing yourself from the situation and gathering yourself. You'll actually be still. You'll stop what you're doing and reflect in your heart about what's going on. Put another way, press the pause button. Now, bear in mind, I'm not talking about every single aggravation or nuisance that you experience. However, those things that really prompt the volume button of your anger to get turned up, whatever those things are, and whenever those instances happen, you need to make a choice. Perhaps you've seen this in person, or at the very least, I'm sure you've seen it on TV. You'll have a couple of guys that get into an argument and someone throws a punch. At that point, it's on. You've got two guys that are going at it, but then some others may step in and physically grab the individuals, restraining them. What happens then? What do they then do? They remove them from the situation. They take them away from that environment. They try to talk to them calmly. They seek to get them to stop what otherwise they would have been doing. If you want to keep your experience of anger in check, you're going to have to find yourself making the choice to essentially do that to yourself. Pull yourself back. Press the pause button. Think through this so that you actually do, say, or how it is that you respond is hopefully the fruit of reason and thought as opposed to inflamed and out of control passion. Oftentimes what that experience of pausing will do is to enable you to get your mind in front of your emotions. It'll allow you to, allow you the opportunity to think through what is going on and what an appropriate response could and should be. Now, if you don't provide yourself that opportunity, you'll be driven by and dictated by your emotions instead of being a person who is guiding their emotions and feelings. And that's a very dangerous place to be when you don't do that. Please, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting you don't get mad. I'm not suggesting that you should avoid or seek to go through life void of the experience of anger. God didn't make you that way. But part of being made in the image of God is that we do experience anger as He does. But as you experience it, keep in mind that your feelings, your anger, whether justified or not, is never an excuse for bad behavior. It doesn't give you a free pass. Furthermore, to prevent these experiences of anger from getting out of control, we need to press the pause button. And if and when we do that, we can experience anger, but we can keep it in check. Listen, I understand that that's a whole lot easier said than done, but it is possible. God has shown us how, if we'll just take Him at His word and become doers of the word and not just hearers only. Thanks again for your time. You have a great day and God bless you.